Hello! In the last video we talked about completing the square and how to use that to solve quadratic equations. Now you may have thought that process takes a long time, and you're right, it does. Now there is a little shortcut. If we analyze carefully a generic quadratic equation, so let's say we've got ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so we don't know what a, b, and c are, they're just real numbers. Then we can algebraically complete the square, go through all the same steps we did, but instead of using real numbers, we can use a, b, and c. And when you do that and you complete the square and isolate x, you get this expression right here. I hope that's familiar for most of you. It is the quadratic formula, and it's something that I'd like you to memorize for this course. Now notice that just like in completing the square, we saw that you can get up to two different solutions due to the fact that we take the positive and negative square root of both sides of the equation at a certain point. So, of course, we shouldn't be surprised when we see a plus or minus in the quadratic formula. By the way, all the formulas you memorize, I've given you a sheet for this class, and you should put it in that sheet right now. Now, if we take a look at this quadratic formula, we notice that it's got that square root in it. And we know something about square roots. You can never take the square root of a negative number. And if you do take the square root of 0 there, you'd get 0. And plus or minus 0 is the same number regardless. So as a result, let's say that b squared minus 4ac, what's under the square root sign, it's actually, we call that sort of thing a discriminant. If it's positive, if it's greater than 0, then we're going to get two distinct solutions. Now, if the discriminant is exactly 0, then we're going to have negative b plus or minus the square root of 0 plus or minus 0. Our top will just be negative b. There won't be two choices. So our only solution will be negative b over 2a, and we'll just get one real solution. Oh, that e's in the wrong place. Get over there. All right. And lastly, if our discriminant is negative, there are no real solutions at all. So we can have all three different possibilities, but that's it. Okay, there aren't any other options. Either a quadratic equation has two real solutions, one unique real solution, or no real solutions. Those are the only possibilities. Now let's use that quadratic formula there. I've got it memorized. We'll go try it on the next page here. So we've got a whole bunch of quadratic equations here. We're going to solve them with the quadratic formula. So before we get started, I just want to give you a word of warning. Always try to factor first. Even compared to the quadratic formula, it is much faster to factor. But if you try to factor and you give yourself about 20 seconds and it's not working, then switch gears immediately. Go right to the quadratic formula. That's the most efficient way to use your time. So for our first one, we've got negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, notice how careful I am to cover everything under the square root sign in that bar. Don't be lazy and stop it part way. Make it very clear to the reader exactly what's in the square root and what's not. Also, my division bar goes all the way. Everything there is part of a numerator, and everything below it is part of the denominator. Okay? Be very clear when you write those things down. If I simplify this calculation, let's see, we've got negative 5 squared is 25, and then we've got minus 8 times 3 minus 24. So 25 minus 24 under our square root sign, all over 4. Well, 25 minus 24 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. So we have 5 plus or minus 1 all over 4. So we've got two solutions. So t is equal to 6 over 4, which I'll immediately write in lowest terms, 3/2, or t is equal to 4 over 4. And again, I'll immediately write it in lowest terms. Okay? So we have two solutions, t equals 3/2 and t equals 1. Let's try another example here. How about the second one? Looks fairly straightforward. Shouldn't be too difficult to calculate. So we've got x is equal to -1 plus or minus. I guess all our coefficients are 1. This is kind of not that exciting. 4 times 1 times 1 all over 2 times 1. So we get -1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 4 all over 2. And here we've got a problem because we're looking at -1 plus or minus the square root of -3 all over 2. Okay? And here this should set off all our warning bells. This is not a real number. So what can we conclude? Since what's under our square root sign is negative, there are no real solutions. Now, just as a quick word of warning here, notice that when I use the quadratic formula, I make sure to use the proper variable that's being used in the equation. If my variable is t, then I have t equals what my quadratic formula tells me it is. If my variable is x, then I have x equals what my quadratic formula tells me it is. So please try for yourself question number 3 there, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me.